That we've got it. All right. So you should see where it says Bermuda Staff Chat. So thank you for coming in. Kick this over here. So greetings. My name is Michael Blaine. I am the host, and that means I stop talking, and I'm going to let our guest do all the talking right there. Big one here is keeping your mic muted. That way, if you have a dog barking or cats fighting or whatever it might be, that we don't hear that. If you have questions, two ways of doing it. One is you can sort of wait till the end and ask a question. If it's really something important, you could make the little hand sign, or more importantly, do a chat at the bottom. I'll be checking that for Chris, and I will certainly let him know that. But there will be a time at the end of the session when Chris is done for question and answers, and we'll have plenty of time for that as well too. I'm recording this. This will be recorded and posted very shortly so that people that miss this can see that, and that's what we have for that. Reminder here, we do have the Bermuda Post. We print this 4 times a year. This is the newest one right here. So make sure you check that out. Chris, you're certainly invited to check that out or to contribute to it. Always have good things with that, and always excited about quality articles with that. I will tell you, and I was excited about Chris. Chris is going to start my season off awesome here. So I already have the lineup set up, and I think we're going to post this on our website, but I just want to give you a heads up here. So we've got fantastic rock star Chris today. We have Horace that's going to do a neat one on censorship covers. And as a matter of fact, I think I need to change that. There's another name for that. I think it's called royal covers. But Horace is going to do a presentation for September. October, I've got Adelia Fox coming back. She had to cancel earlier, if you remember that, in the summertime, but she is coming back. She's the Bermuda Philatelic Coordinator for the country of Bermuda. Excited about that. We have our very own Nigel has promised me to do one on Bermuda's role in the Second Boer War, and I'm excited about that as well too. So he's going to be our presenter for that. December, I've got Ed doing censorship focus, and he's still kind of working out what he wants to do that on, which I'm excited as well. Our January will be a general meeting, so show and tell of all the goodies that you've been looking for and seeking and finding. And then I've got John coming in February, and he's going to let me know what that's going to be. So I'm very excited that I have these fantastic presenters, and I am not one of them. So I can let the professionals take over. All right. So I'm going to welcome Chris McFetridge here. He's going to be talking about using AI. I think this is an exciting one. I will tell you, being in a community college, it's all we talk about. I'm an English teacher, so it's usually either a good word or a bad word, depending on how it's being used. I was so excited about this as a topic, and I'm glad that Chris is going to be the one doing that. What a better person to do that. So give you an introduction. Look at that handsome guy right there. All right, an introduction for Chris right here. Chris has been collecting stamps. He's in Canada. He says since the age of 6. Deep passion, marking his first major purchase. And I'm a little jealous about this. Penny Black on cover, and Newfoundland's Trail of the Caribou issue at age 14. So there's a marker right there, right there. I think it was old when I got my first Penny Black. I like this rather than specializing in one area, that he basically immersed himself in different subjects. I think he has this sort of heart of exploration. I think that's really cool. So he says now that this has enabled him to sort of have a broader expanse and understanding of philately. I think that's absolutely right on. His career moved back and forth between stamps and accounting. So that's interesting. So stamps and accounting, there we go. Said he entered the professional stamp trade at age 18, which is amazing, but left to pursue accounting, eventually becoming a partner. In 2015, he launched Brixton Chrome. It's a really cool website where that goes. I would absolutely invite everyone to check that out. Eventually transforming it into an eBay-based operation, into an independent auction and retail business. And it's so cool looking. Today, Brixton Chrome is also an important education platform using research articles, YouTube videos to help collectors better understand stamps and their history. And it's a great resource, professional, and just lots of imagery, very user-friendly, fantastic resource. One of the central themes of philosophy is that philately should be driven by curiosity and learning rather than simply value, condition, and completion. And that's an interesting idea right there. And I think that's something that I think there's something very deep about that. I think that's right on. He believes technology can strengthen the hobby when combined with expertise and education. I agree with that. He encourages collectors to pursue whatever genuinely interests them, even if their interests change over time. And I think Chris is sort of a great example. He's the model for how interest can move you into different directions. Um, his latest project involves studying printing methods, paper tagging, and varieties from 1950 to 1980. And I think I've already seen a YouTube video on this. I go down a rabbit hole with Chris's videos, and they're fantastic and very interesting because these are more modern. These reflect his evolution from simply collecting stamps to really researching and sharing. And I like the idea of sharing the deeper stories they contain. So his journey demonstrates that philately is not simply about accumulating valuable stamps. It's about discovery, personal curiosity, history, and continually finding new reasons to appreciate the hobby. And I will tell you, it was an epiphany. I was looking at videos of Chris, and I thought, I've got to get this guy. And he was doing an actual YouTube video on our own Bermuda key plates. And they were fantastic, short and to the just really were informative. And I just told Chris that actually several years ago, I collect Nigerian stamps. I had found information from him about the different printing variations from specific definitives from Nigeria, and actually emailed him. And the cool thing about emailing Chris is that he emailed back really quickly, and it was just a wonderful experience. So enough of that, Chris. Welcome, and I'm going to give you the stage right here.
Well, thank you. So yeah, today I wanted to talk about using Google AI mode to look at postmarks, and I first noticed this availability, I think about 6 months ago, and it was just really, very sudden because I obviously use Google to look things up. But one day when I was doing that and expecting the usual range of links, it actually spat out an answer. And then I started going, oh, so, I had a collection of Bermuda stamps and I had some numeral cancels on some of the Queen Victoria issues. And I don't have a Robson Lowe for British America, so I didn't really have anywhere to look up the cancels. But I remember thinking, if I'm going to describe these, I think I'd like to find out, if I've actually got anything good here, because it seemed to me that, if you had something other than Hamilton, that it would probably be better. And it wouldn't hurt to look it up. So all I did was I'll show you right now. I'll share the screen. Um, if I can do that, Michael.
Got it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So uh, I have Google up here. So for example, I would type in Bard numeral cancel. I might say, okay, number. I put the number in front. I don't know. Give me a number like 4. Is there a 4? Bard numeral cancellation on Queen Victoria. Now I'm hoping it'll actually return something. Otherwise, uh, stamp of Bermuda. Okay, so you'll see at the top here, it's returning a result. And you kind of scroll through. Now, sometimes what'll happen is if it doesn't have, because what it's doing is it's combing the net and looking for um, an actual a reference. So if it doesn't have anything or it can't find anything, it will return something like this. You see how what's here is very general, it's not specific. But then you can sometimes you can drill down further once it's given you the answer, and you can ask it again. Do you know uh, which post office was assigned number 4? and it'll think, and it'll build off of your last query. So you don't usually, okay, so here it's
Huh.
saying in the standard Victoria area sequence for Bermuda's, number 4 was Mangrove Bay. And there it's giving you some number allotments there. Now, one thing you do have to be aware of with Google is it can hallucinate. Okay. And it's possible sometimes that it will give you a result that's not actually right. I've had that happen sometimes where if I go and I reverse the search or I search again, I get a different answer. But, for the most part, it's pretty accurate, I think. And here, so it's telling you about Mangrove Bay. It's saying crisp strikes are highly collectible. So then, if I wanted to know, well, how much is it worth? What's a sock on the nose strike worth? I can then ask it again. What is the value of a sock on the nose strike?
Oh my gosh.
And it will tell me here. Okay, so it's saying usually adds a 50 to 100% premium over the standard catalog value of the stamp. And it might say, so it says here for on a common stamp, it's worth under $5. Perfect sock on the nose will be $15 to $30 item. Now, what it's probably doing is it's pulling a lot of this stuff off of eBay because that or hip stamp because that's what is going to be the majority of the data points for stuff that's not in major auction catalogs. But if you're like a dealer like me and you're trying to put an estimate on something in the auction, it's accurate enough. It's giving people an idea that it's better than the standard $2 or $3 in the catalog, and it takes it from being a stamp that isn't good enough to make a lot out of to being one that's laudable as a single stamp. Um, And so, I mean, that's just finding value. But if you want to look for more information on, say, Mangrove Bay, you could ask it again anything you wanted. If you're trying to do an exhibit and you want to flesh out your descriptions, you just keep asking it as much as you want, and then you can take all that information. Now, and so this is an example where it actually knew. It won't always, and what you'll find is that usually for Queen Victoria period, Edward, it's usually pretty good. As you work your way up and you get more and more modern, it's going to know less and less. And so if you don't actually find a results, it means that there hasn't really been anybody that's written much of anything on it. So there's just nothing for it to. It might default to giving you its impression of general rarity or its general collectability, but it's not all that useful at that point. But it is very useful, I think, for looking up the earlier classic period. Um, I've been using it now. I used it on that Bermuda collection, but I've used it on any classic country I'm working on. I just worked on Austria recently, and I mean it's turned that country into a very lucrative country because you'll get stuff that isn't actually from Austria; it's from other parts of Europe, and you get all kinds of forerunners and precursors that you can only identify from the cancels. And if you're not familiar with the geography of the area, you don't know, or the town names, you don't know where they are, right? But Google will, in an afternoon, you can type in your searches and you can actually work with this. And if you want to be sure that it's not hallucinating, you can always test it by taking something that's known and from the area, or taking two or three known examples and checking and just making sure that what it's giving you is accurate to the stuff that you know. Um, And generally speaking, I'm finding it is usually pretty accurate. So, any questions at this point or comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Oh,
Fred, go ahead. I see, and
yeah.
Rob had a question too.
Yeah. I just wondered if you tried doing an image of a cancel and had the Google search that is, how well does that work?
Yes. With Lens? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
what you can do is when you're doing the search, if we go back, okay, so when you're doing your search, you got this little icon that's here that
Hmm.
I'm pointing at. So that's Google Lens. So I would usually be doing it with my phone
Hmm.
because I need the camera,
Right.
right? So you would open up the camera app on the phone and or no, sorry, you would just open up Google Lens on your phone and point the camera at your stamp. And when you hit the lens icon, it will line up an image on your stamp, and it will take the image and it'll search it, and it will tell you. Sometimes it will give you the exact cancellation, and it will tell you everything. Other times, it'll give you a general answer like we first saw, and you'll have to drill down and get it to tell you more, but it will often ask you questions. So it might say something like, okay, what color ink is your cancel? Is it a CDS? Is it a bar cancel? How are the town names spelt? Um, that was one I got for Austria quite a bit because they're different languages. Um, might ask you for a date. What time period is it in? If one period is scarcer than another. And so as you answer the questions, it'll drill down further and further until you get to the answer you want. It's very, very user friendly that way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm aware of with AI is that a lot of the algorithms for this kind of use have built into them this sort of customer pleasing kind of language, and that's where it goes. You
Yes.
you call it hallucinating, but it'll come back with an answer regardless of whether or not it has any real tangible fact to build upon because it's programmed to give an answer regardless of what it is. So that's
It's
where
programmed to
checking,
give an answer.
yeah,
Yeah. But
that's where checking is important.
yeah, yeah.
And I,
But
I
I
agree
have
with you.
found
Yeah,
with
yeah.
with Google though, if it doesn't know, the
It's pretty
answer
good.
won't be very useful. And
Right,
it'll be
right.
pretty clear. Like it won't generally come out and tell you you've got a very rare cancel here if you don't.
Yeah.
It will give you some vague general, okay, these cancels are collectible. Lots of
Hmm.
people like them, but it won't usually like I've tried it because I have checked it on, say, where it was returning high values to me. I went, okay, let me take a really common 3 cent small queen or something and for Canada and
Hmm.
put it in there and see what it tells me, just to make sure it's not
Right,
telling me
right.
also that it's a $20 item when I know it's only one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, it's actually also just really useful if you have the reference sources, but you just
Right.
don't know where to look.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've used it. I'm a scientist, so I've used AI and science, and the appropriate technique, if you like, is to do exactly as you said. Take something that you know pretty sure the answer, test it on that to validate the algorithm, and then go into your, more un, you know, not understood question that you have. But
Mhm.
the other test that often gets done is to rephrase the question again, as you said before, and ask it
Yeah.
again and see if you get the same answer back. But doing those checks is a good way to not get down a rabbit hole that's not right. Um,
And
Yeah.
I feel
but
like with
it's fast though. It's incredibly quick as far as returning information.
Yeah.
I feel
Yes.
like
Yes, it
too
is.
with Chris's point too. we always talk about this with our students, that it's a starting point, that
Yeah,
it's not definitive answer, but it gives you a starting point with information to then go, oh, if it's that, then I've got another resource. I can check it then. And Chris, I've
right.
had the same thing with the language thing where I remember I was at a stamp club, local stamp club, and it was a word written across the stamp. I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And I had my phone, I typed the word in, and it was German for, it was canceled to order, but they had a special stamp for it. As it's a canceled order from like 1940s or something like that. But it was that fast. I would have not, it would have taken me a while I didn't know it. I didn't know that. But here within seconds, I had some direction. Oh, and then I thought, oh, I didn't know they did those kind of things. That's interesting. And now you've got sort of a baseline of information to start from.
Yeah, well, it's especially useful when you have like we're saying, you have absolutely no idea where to start. So and you can uncover some really rare stamps this way. Like I had an example of this. I had an Austrian stamp with the Franz Joseph issue from 1860, the one with the fine and the coarse prints.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the low values are really cheap in Scott. Like we're talking now, this was the one with the Turkish Empire, but still, it's only $2 in Scott. But it had a weird looking cancel to me. It was an Italian sounding cancel, and I looked at it and I thought that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like Turkey. So I put it into Google and I said, okay, well, what is this? And it said, oh, it's Albania. And I go and I think, oh, I remembered. Okay, Scott Classic has forerunner listings for some of these countries, and they're usually a lot of money. And I thought, oh, I wonder if it's. I'll check. I'll look up Albania and I'll see if it's listed. And sure enough, it was, and it was a $1,200 stamp.
oh, wow.
And I know, okay, I'm not going to get $1,200 for it. I'll be happy if someone gives me 100. I'll be really happy because it's just falling out of a lot. So incredibly useful for that because I wouldn't have had any idea what country, where to look for that, and I mean I'd be burning up dozens of hours, which I don't have.
Good point.
It's anyone else?
Rob, you have something?
This is liable to be a pretty short topic. It's not it's not an hour long presentation, I don't think. Unless you want to give me some examples, if we want to look up some actual Bermuda examples and see what comes back. Does anyone have any?
I think, Chris, the biggest one here is when we talk about AI, a lot of times we think they're programs that you have to get. And I think this is interesting because this is Google. We all heard about the concept of let's just Google it, right? But Google is now incorporating AI. We also use MSN, which is Bing, and they have their
Hmm.
own, I think it's Gemini. So depending on
Yeah.
everyone that uses a computer or a phone, if you've got a browser, that browser probably is attached to a big company, and that big company has some form of AI that's going to refine that search for you. And I think, and I've used this before, and I have all the catalogs. I do. I'm a still, I'm still paper. I love the books, but there's something about sitting in front of the computer and being able to bust out a whole bunch of stamps and identifying them and getting good direction. And I think Chris makes a good point that with the Austrian, and I found the same thing. Like as sort of, I still consider myself a new collector, not knowing something where you can easily dismiss a stamp or move it on just because of ignorance. And ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid; it just means you don't know something. And I've used things like ColNet, and it'll just say, "Hey, by the way, there are three versions of this. There's three variants of that." And I'm like, "Oh," and I might not have known that. Just even with the Australians, where you have the varnish, and I know that the Scots will have that. I know that you have that, but if I'm just going through a bunch of stamps and I'm trying to quickly identify them and see if I have them or not, I might miss that. And Chris is adding another element, a level to that where you're looking at special cancellations that might give you additional information about the stamp. That's not even really talking about covers even. You could really just take a cover and probably get all the information on that and put that into the Google as well, and just to see what comes up. And again, anything that's attached into the internet, it's going to pull from. That's what it's doing.
Well, and you can use it for things other than cancels. So another example that I'll give you is of where it comes in very handy is in verifying variations and possible varieties that you wouldn't that Scott just would never even mention. So, one of the things that I've noticed over the years when I collect is that most issues from between, say, about 1915 and 1930, if they're engraved, they exist in wet or dry printings for most countries. Like most people probably know the admirals of Canada are explicitly listed that way. But I think the caravel issues for Bermuda are wet and dry, if I'm not mistaken. There's variations, right, with how large the printing is, depending on whether the sheets were wet or dry. And actually, most countries have these varieties because, again, when I was working on Austria, um, I had these stamps where I could see definite variations in the dimensions,
Hmm.
and there's nothing in Scott about that. And I knew from the time period, I thought, okay, I'll bet you they're wet versus dry. And I just typed into Google, were these issues issued these both ways? Do they exist this way? And it returned a result and said, oh yeah, it's listed in Meikle. It's in the Austrian specialized catalog, and actually the dry printings are scarce. They're worth a whole lot more than the wet. And then I could start asking it, okay, well, I've got the 10K value here. What's that? What's the difference? What's the price? And it'll tell me. Or I could take a Google Lens shot and say, okay, for this Austrian stamp or this Bermuda stamp, are there any specialized varieties that I should be aware of that are not in Scott? And it'll tell me. It'll say, oh yeah, the collectors and specialists of this issue look for these types of plate varieties or flaws, or they look for re-entries on this stamp, or they look for special shades, and it'll tell you all this stuff. And it's amazing what it comes up with. And it does actually quote back to catalogs, so it's not just making stuff up. Um, and just what I've been able, just the amount of knowledge the breadth of knowledge I'm able to increase or awareness of by doing that, has taken just breaking down a mundane collection or something that might just be a nothing collection to something that actually allows me to write some blog articles or to put some more information on my website and actually move the needle on the hobby and keep advancing the knowledge. So, I mean, one thing I see AI, and this isn't cancel related, but where I see AI being incredibly useful is going to be on plating GB line engraved. Because you have on the web, you've got all the imprimatur sheets on the Royal Philatelic Society's website.
Yeah.
The problem is if you've ever tried to plate using those sheets, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. I bought a bunch of penny reds about 2 or 3 years ago from Sparks Auctions, thinking very, very naively that I was going to plate them all and put them in my auctions. Because, hey, I mean, and the sheets, they're all there. I mean, how hard can it be? Well, you've got 225 plate, I think, for the imperf issues. And you've got 220 positions or something per sheet, which means you've got 50,000 stamps. So it takes you, I don't know, hours just to get through 10 stamps. And after that, I realized, okay, you know what? I'm gonna put these up for a dollar a piece or $5 a piece, and I'll let somebody else find the treasure because there's no way to do it. But if you had AI, and if there was a program where you could scan in your page of Penny Red, upload it to an AI, and then upload the imprimatur sheets to the AI, it could just do a quick, visual comparison match and tell you, yeah, this one's 3, this one's 177, this one's 95, this one might be 93, 87, or 89, but I'm not sure. Right? And it would be probably more accurate than any human eye.
So, Chris, do you think with the actual camera part of it, that it would, if you scan a cover, it would just start looking and gathering information?
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, it'll gather what it can, what
Yeah.
it knows.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, it will actually with covers. That's a good point because it will know people. Like I did this actually a couple of weeks ago. I had a box of 3 cent Washington covers from the banknotes that I bought in a sale because they were cheap. Because it was like, I don't know, it was like 300 covers, and I got them for $60.
Hmm.
Thinking, okay, well, I'm sure I can probably find some good ones in there. And I started doing exactly that. Google Lens of some of the fronts, and it'll research the people. It'll tell you, oh yeah, this guy owned like the major dry good merchant in Massachusetts, in this town in Massachusetts, and he was a famous merchant, and this is a good cover because the local collector of that will pay, a little bit more for it. And it'll tell you if there is anything significant and there's a historical record of it, it will find it. So actually with postal history, yeah, it's incredibly promising for a cover dealer that wants to take the time, or a collector, to actually look at what's on the cover as opposed to just the route markings or the rates. And they want to look at actually who it is.
So
Chris,
it would do. I'm sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
I just pulled out 3 Queen Victoria stamps from my collection. One is
Mhm.
they're all number barred. One is number 1. One is number 2.
Yeah.
And the third one seems to be B as in boy 1. I
Oh,
don't know whether
B1.
I don't know whether that's going to work.
Yeah, let's try that one. Well, number 1 is Hamilton.
Okay, and number 2 would be St.
Um,
George.
Yeah, 2 I think is St. George, or it's the other way around. But B1, that's
There-
probably a mail boat.
Okay,
Oh no, no. Oh, that's interesting. No, that's actually St. George's too.
huh?
So what happened was that the one was lost or damaged in 1868. So that's the replacement hammer.
Okay,
Now I can ask, okay, if I want to know, is it actually scarcer? So I could say, is it scarcer than number 1?
Hmm.
No. It's generally less scarce than the original 1 killer cancel.
okay.
So it's just normal.
So of these 3 stamps, which is the older one, the pink one or the brown one?
Would be the pink one.
Okay, that's the number
Yeah.
1. Number 2's in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they crown CC or CA?
I can't tell at the moment. I could pull them out and check. But this is the part I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could also, because I just said I was very vague here in Queen Victoria's stamp, but I would put, if I knew it was crown CA or CC, I would put that in there.
Yeah, the brown one is CC,
Yeah.
and the other 2 are in some sort of crystal Scott mount. I can't. Oh, CC. The pink one is CC.
Okay, yeah. So it would be the earlier, and then B1 was CC, but it was on the I think that's a farthing stamp, right?
Uh, Which one, sir?
The brown, isn't that a farthing? It's quarter
No,
pence, right?
pence, 6 pence.
Oh, it's a sixpence.
It's like brownish violet.
Oh, it's violet. Okay, yeah, okay, right. Okay, so if I wanted to see if I wanted to know, because it's just telling me the general scarcity. So then I might say, well, is it scarce on the 60 Crown CC?
It's billions dollars, right?
No, no dice. So
Okay.
it's not really any better. It's saying it's
Okay.
very common.
All right. That's
So
fine.
this is an example. It's not being sycophantic to me. It's not telling me what I want to hear. So that's good.
Sounds like my wife.
But Chris, it does give you good information. I like the fact that it does tell you that where it was used for transatlantic international,
Yeah.
big time between, it was the rate during 1816, 1870s. I like that. I think for like a new person coming in, it does give you sort of again that baseline information, or at least something to start with, and then to move forward with that.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, especially because, a lot of this information before, I mean, it was locked up in journal articles and things that aren't readily available to people who aren't members of societies. And a lot of young people are not joining them.
Well, and
So,
I will say here, this was mentioned. You were talking about shoot, what was the term that you used? Not that it's making up stuff, but that it was you would have to check it. I always tell students that with AI stuff to check the source. And the nice thing I think with this is it does actually give you the link of where it's pulling it from. So that first one says
yes.
eBay, and I think it says +3. A couple of the
Yeah.
others actually, not to shout us out right here, was Bermuda Collectors Society, was us. So it was pulling information for probably from our own website. But so you got a
Hmm.
Facebook there. So you could go down a rabbit hole here. You could click a couple of those and see where they're going. And I've done that before. I think it's how I found Chris one time, going down a rabbit hole multiple times. So I feel like not only does it give the information, but you also could click it and see if do a little more fishing, if there's anything else there.
Yep. Yeah, and so you can see when I'm putting my cursor on, it's actually giving me the pop-up of the websites. So here, yeah, you've got eBay, you've got Michael Hamilton, who you probably know, the postal history dealer. A hip stamp. Yeah, so those are all sales sites. And then over here there's a link. And that's just Watermarks and Aiden Victoria Stamp Company. So that one's probably not as useful, and then there's another eBay one over here. So yeah, it's useful and it will tell you where it's getting all its info. I haven't tried the other devices or the other chat bots. I haven't used Chat GPT for stamps, so I don't know how it is. Um, I just happened to stumble on Google, and because it was so useful and I liked it so much, I just haven't moved away from it. Um,
Chris, I've got a query. I'm forever losing my perf gauge. Do you think if I put in a search on Google, it might come up with a perf gauge as an image, so I could put my stamp alongside it to determine what perf it is?
it probably would, but I actually think Google Lens might.
So,
I haven't tried this, but Google Lens might even be able to tell you what the perf is.
All right. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
might be useful. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't actually tried to do that just because I have an Instanta gauge here and I just use that. But I know that on the market there are optical ones that you can buy, but it seems to me as though um, if not now, at some point in the not too distant future, you'll just be able to take a picture and it'll just be able to tell you.
And Chris,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are apps that do that. I remember I just saw one that does that. You take a picture of the stamp, it'll tell you what the perf is, it'll tell you the coloring, it'll tell you everything about it. But the key here is, I think this is what I like about George using Google, is that for now, Google's free. And we have it. It's usually on a
Yeah.
search engine for us, where the apps you generally have to buy a subscription. There's something, a membership that you have to do. There's money involved with that. And this is why was excited about your presentation. And I use ChatGPT as well. I will tell you, it sort of does the same thing, but ChatGPT has levels. They have a membership level and a free level.
Well, and this is probably not going to be free forever.
True.
We're training it right now by using it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, anytime something's free, you've probably heard the expression, anytime something's free, you're the product,
Nice.
right?
Chris, this is Bob Lowen calling from Arizona, speaking from
Oh.
Arizona. Hi.
Mhm.
Michael mentioned that you have a video on YouTube on Bermuda key plates.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, was Google Lens useful in helping to identify various printings of the key plate issues?
I didn't use it for that. I haven't tried it. I mean, I simply did that video based on my own knowledge of them.
Okay.
And all I did was I took my high resolution scans, I blew them up, and I was pointing out various things to look for. But I don't know if Google Lens is sophisticated enough yet to pick up very fine details.
Yeah. Okay.
Because a lot of things, as you would appreciate with those, is, I mean, there's a lot of judgment involved, and I don't know that a lens would pick that up.
I find it hard to believe that it
Yeah.
could. There's too
Yeah.
many there's too many variations. You can't use an ultraviolet light on Google Lens, I don't think. I don't
No, I don't think you can either.
so I don't think I'd try and use Google Lens at least now to identify key plate printings.
Yeah.
All right.
But,
Thanks.
with where everything's headed, I mean, you don't know in another 10 years. I mean, maybe.
But you could get direction with it. I think with Bob, that's maybe sort of where you're going with that one. It's like you could type in, this is what the perf is, this is the king that's on it, and maybe I'm trying to think what else. You wouldn't be able to get any of the flaws, but at least you could start with that, and then it would aim you toward like, well, you've got these variety that go with it. Good luck.